Let's start with the main part of this deck, which is the tuck box. Absolutely beautiful, done in gold and purple metallic ink. Now, when you're talking about metallic, you rarely see purple, and I'm honestly loving this purple and gold combo. On the front, you're going to have the Avengers A logo, and at the top it says Avengers. You're going to have different logos from different people all around this tuck box. At the top, you're going to have Captain America's shield. At the bottom, you have the triangle, which is when Iron Man had that in the center of his chest during the second movie. You have Hawkeye's arrow, you have Thor's hammer, you have the Hulk's fist, and you have Black Widow's hourglass logo. You actually have one at the bottom right, which you have for Scarlet Witch. At the bottom left, you have Spider-Man. Then on the top left, you have Captain Marvel's logo, and on the top right, you have Black Panther. The left side says the Infinity Saga, and at the bottom, you have a gauntlet, and at the top, you have a fire. And then on the other side, this time at the bottom you have a slightly different Infinity Gauntlet, and at the top you have a slightly different logo. The back of this tuck box is going to be a version of the actual back design, just done in more metallic inks, and I'll get to that more in a little bit later. The top says the Infinity Saga. On the left side you have the logo from Doctor Strange, and the right side has the Mind Stone on Vision's forehead. Your tuck seal says the Infinity Saga Marvel playing cards. And the bottom is your standard Theory 11 ad copy and Marvel. The large inside tuck flap has the Avengers logo, and the two smaller inside tuck flaps have it as well, but this time done in gold. The inside is done completely in black. I think that's enough for the tuck box. Let's take a look at the cards. The back design looks amazing. I do wish that the colors would contrast a little more. I wish that the purples were more defined and less of a light purple that the whites could really pop. This time the white is a little bit more overpowering and the purples are a little bit more faded, but I do still like this deck. A few more symbols you're going to see in here. You have Black Panther at the top. On the sides you're going to see things like the hammer and arrows. You're going to have Infinity Stones going all the way around the outside. And even the line work across this outside part here is actually from Thor's homeworld, just flipped upside down every time. The more you look at this deck, the more you find things that you have not seen before. Every single piece of this was intentional. The number cards have all been redone. Your blacks are blacks, your reds are red, but you're going to have a custom font for your numbers, and all of the pips have been redone with individual line work on the insides of them. So here are the clubs, diamonds, spades, and hearts. Your three aces are absolutely amazing and a little bit enlarged, which is just the way I like it. Your ace of hearts is going to have the pen that Thanos holds, which is perfectly balanced as all things should be. Your ace of clubs is going to have the star from the middle of Captain America's suits. And your ace of diamonds is going to have that same logo from the top of the box. You have duplicate ad cards. They both say Avengers, Theory 11, Circa Trova, Marvel Made in the USA. You have the 4 pips on the outside corners. You have Falcon and War Machine on the one. The top left has the Marvel employee and the top right has Nick Fury. The other side has Avengers. Theory 11 produces the world's finest playing cards, the ultimate high-end luxury playing cards. And then on the tops of these, you will have Drax on the top right and Thanos' daughter on the top left. Then on the other side, you have Rocket Raccoon on the top right and Groot on the top left. You have 2 individual Jokers, one being Loki. You have his helmet and 2 scepters, you have his dual daggers, and then you have the cube on the bottom. And then your other one is going to be Thanos, him in his helmet with his massive sword, which somehow was better than him when he had the Infinity Stones. Speaking of them, they're going to be at the bottom, and on both sides you're going to have his pen. Your Ace of Spades is going to be a redone Timekeeper, saying the Infinity Saga and Circa Trova, and even in the top and bottom it says Ace of Spades and Theory 11, and it truly looks like Doctor Strange is here. And I might have been compared to him once or twice. And now for my favorite part of this deck, which is the court cards. I'm going to be going from my least favorite Avenger to my favorite Avenger. So obviously first is going to be Captain Marvel. Then for your Queen of Spades, you have Valkyrie. For the Queen of Diamonds, we have Scarlet Witch, and in the background you'll also see the Wasp. The Jack of Hearts as Spider-Man, actually webbing the pip on both sides. The Queen of Clubs is going to be Natasha Romanoff, or Black Widow. The Jack of Clubs is Star-Lord, and you'll actually see that he has his Walkman. The Jack of Spades, you have Hawkeye, both the good version, and if you flip it over, the bad version. Now, actually on the good version, you'll see Ant-Man at the end of the arrow, like in Captain America Civil War. The Jack of Diamonds is going to be the Hulk, but this time from Thor Ragnarok. You'll actually see he has the hammer from that battle and the same headgear as well. The King of Diamonds has to be King T'Challa, or the Black Panther. The King of Clubs is Thor, from Thor Ragnarok as well, and he is holding both hammers. The King of Spades is Captain America. You still have the star. He's holding onto his shield the way he would getting ready for a fight, and he has the hammer. And last but not least, my favorite, Iron Man, which he actually has the semi-triangle in the center, which means it's from his most recent movie where he had the nanotech. So now you know what they look like, but there's still a few things about cards that you still don't know about this deck yet. So let's start with the first one, which is, can this deck Pharaoh? So from bottom to top, we're going to see if it can Pharaoh. And in normal Theory 11 style, of course it can. Now, Theory 11 decks, as of the ones I have, usually struggle from top to bottom, but let's see for this deck, see if it's any different. And this one isn't bad. It's a little bit harder to start, but I'm going to try it again to make sure. Yeah, this deck, from top to bottom, it's okay. Once you get it started, it's fine, but this deck is a little bit harder to start when it comes to the beginning of this deck. And when this deck is fanned, it's going to look like this on the face side, and then on the back, it's going to look like this. So for a Theory 11 deck that has a tuck box like this, which is honestly one of the most elegant tuck cases, period. And the purple and gold combo with the metallic and the embossing is gorgeous. And then you have cards that look like this that are truly kind of bland, and it has a lot of detail in it, but the color-wise is just bland. So I wish they would have been able to take the way the intentionality into the details and put that into the color, because if this would have popped like that, even if it was like not as dark as Monarchs, but somewhere a little bit lighter, but still had the saturation of this, the amount of ways that I think people would have raved over this deck would have been phenomenal. Now next is, how does this deck feel? It's going to feel differently in your hands than it's going to feel from other decks. That's just how decks work when they're printed. So this deck right here, I can explain it to you in two ways. First, I'm going to show you the finish, and then I'm going to show you another thing, which is how it feels. So the finish, it's just a normal air cushion finish. And when it comes to how it feels in your hands, when you're actually going to take it and hold on to this deck, one thing that I can't do for you is just shove it through the screen. So this is what I like to do. I explain it in two ways. How it feels and how thick it is. So how thick is this deck? On a scale of thin to middle of the line to thick, it is a thicker deck. Now I've definitely felt thicker decks before. It almost feels like the thickness is like a crushed premium stock, which would be more of anything by OPC. So if you have any of their decks, it's going to feel the thickness of like that. And then when it comes to actually how this deck feels, you have more buttery decks, you have more snappy decks, or I like to say crispy because I like bacon, and you have stiff decks that really don't move. Then this deck is going to be more in the buttery side. It definitely has some snappy as well. It's definitely not stiff, but it lands more in the buttery. And buttery decks are usually better for when you're having to do things like this. Again, super easy to do. It has really no problem with my hand. I'm never going to cramp, ever. I can do the same move over and over and never have a problem with it just because it's so buttery. But for the most part, if you've ever felt a Theory 11 deck, they all feel the same. Now, outside of those things, should you buy it? Well, I think there's one way I can explain it to you. I think it depends on who you are, right? If you're a magician, I think you can buy this deck. I don't see any real problem with it, except for the fact that the court cards are so overly customized that it might take a second for your spectator to realize, like, oh, that's the King of Hearts, or that's the Queen of Diamonds. For cardistry, this probably isn't your deck. I mean, the back design is not very saturated at all, so it's just not very much. The back design isn't very saturated, and the faces aren't really crazy, and it's not going to be a borderless deck. It's not going to be a broken border deck. It's just not really a cardistry deck. Now, when it comes to collectors, this is where I think that you are most suited. First of all, it's a Theory 11 deck, so if you like collecting all of a certain type of series, like the Cherry Casino playing cards or all the fill in the blank, Theory 11 has put out a lot of decks, so if you like collecting all the Theory 11s, this is for you. If you are a Marvel fan, this is an amazing purchase for you to pick up. I mean, seriously. And this deck is 10% off in the description below, so there's no reason for you to not pick this deck up at this point. And plus, that tuck box is going to look dope on a shelf like that. Now, can you play games with it? I mean, you can play games with it. It's not going to be hard to recognize when you have it in your hand. It's not marked. It's nothing like that. But at the same time, I probably don't want my friends playing with this deck. And then, is this a hype deck? No, it's not a hype deck. Theory 11 puts out great cards. And by great cards, I mean great tuck boxes and intentional cards. Their back designs usually lack a little bit, but we can work on that some other time. So again, if you do want to pick up this deck, it is 10% off with code CardPerfectMagician in the description below, so make sure to go through that link, and I'll save you some money. I hope you enjoyed this review, so please make sure to subscribe to the channel. I put out a new video every single week. Thanks for watching. This is Card Perfect, signing off.